What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are staying safe and you've been doing well since the last time I posted. Now, today's video, we got two different things to talk about. We got some Carmelo Anthony stuff to talk about with his indictment and all the stuff still going on over there. And we got Brian Kohberger's guilty plea really on the 23rd hour before his death penalty trial for the murder of four Idaho college students was supposed to start. So without any further ado, let's get into this, shall we? Now, we'll start with the Carmelo Anthony situation. He has been officially indicted. It was at the end of June. That's not surprised. We were just waiting for the official indictment. We knew it was coming down the pipe, and it happened. He was indicted on first-degree murder charges, which, if convicted, he will face 5 to 99 years. Now, the first thing that people are talking about with this is the fact that the judge allowed him to basically be on house arrest until his trial comes down the pipe, which people who are of the side that want to see him convicted don't understand how the judge could let someone, even someone who was a minor at the time of this charge, could let that person go home. Now, I understand that sentiment, and I can kind of agree with it to a point, but there's a couple of things here to note. One, the judge was illegally allowed to do it because obviously the judge wouldn't have been allowed to do that if it was not something within the judge's purview. It would have been overturned, it would have been challenged, it would have been all that. And also, there is precedent for it. So I think there's two different things to mention there. Because the one thing is, yes, being legally allowed to do something is one thing, but that they're not being precedent for it, and like that thing or a similar thing not having been done before are two different things. The example that I'm talking about is the A.J. Armstrong case, in which he was convicted of, I believe, murdering his parents, and he was allowed to, before his trials, because he had to actually be tried 3 different times. He was allowed to be at home, and people were upset over that. But he was inevitably convicted, and he's appealing his convictions and whatnot. So to those who say, "Hey, this shows that he's going to get a lenient sentence because the judge allowed him to go home," that's not really the case. The judge was just saying, "Hey, this was a young kid. Yeah, this is an incredibly violent crime he is being charged with. The question isn't whether or not he did it. The question is this going to fall under self-defense or not?" So we're going to allow him to go home. He's got both of his parents in his life. They're supporting him. It's not like he's going home to nothing. He's not going to be running the streets. He's going to be on house arrest. So the judge looked at all these mitigating factors and went, "All right, we have to. I don't see any problem with letting this young man go home and be around his family before he potentially spends most, if not the rest of his life in prison," which I think is highly likely. Now, the next thing is there's still Give Send Go controversy here. And I looked last night, the Give Send Go account is still open. And I think it's at like 1.3, $1.4 million as of last night when I looked, because I was doing some computer stuff. I can't type. I normally type like this, but the controversy comes in is people are believing that the Carmelo Anthony family and people who are getting the money are squandering the money. They're spending it on expensive cars, spending it on expensive houses, because people are saying, well, they know he's going to get convicted. They don't got a shot at not getting him off. So they're just going to try and make as much money as possible, and they're going to try and blow it, and they're going to let Carmelo deal with it on his own. A couple of things here. That's illegal. If they're saying that the money is for X and they're using it for Y, that could be illegal. That's illegal. And the CEO or the co-founder of Give Send Go has gotten involved and went basically, "Hey, they haven't been misusing this money. As of a month or two ago, they hadn't even gotten any of it. Although I believe they have started to get some of it now." The controversy comes in is that's illegal, and if from the CEO's perspective or the co-founder, whose name escapes me at the moment, if that person knowingly is messing with the money, if they're saying, "Hey, the money's not going to this," that's potential federal wire fraud charges, and misusing that money for purposes other than their stated purposes is a crime in of itself that those involved in the misuse of that money could be convicted of. Now, to be fair, because I have been critical of the Carmelo Anthony family and his supporters, which I will continue to be, if you look at the description, basically from day one, once this Give Send Go account went up, it basically said, hey, this money is going to go towards having to house us because people leak their address, because there's been crazies on both sides of this, both toward the Anthony family and toward the Metcalf family, who are nothing but victims here, whose house had been swatted multiple times by Anthony supporters, which is incredibly disgusting. They were like, hey, we need a change of address, which makes sense, so people can't find them and say, hey, your son's a murderer and I'm going to take it out on you, which unfortunately in other cases happens in the past. You're supporting your loved one, so you're guilty by association, sort of a deal. We need security because obviously this is such a high profile case. Security makes sense. There, I remember they also, it's just a basic, it's also for basic support. Because I remember, and I believe the first or second video, they said the father, who was the only one working when this crime happened, was staying home. So it's just also just replacing that income to be able to like pay the electric bill, to pay the car note, or whatever it is they got to pay. Dad was the only one working. Now dad's not working because he's at home. I don't know if he has since come back to work. I don't think he has. I don't know. I don't know the guy. But dad wasn't working, so we need to be able to replace the income that dad was bringing in to be able to continue to live. Now, some people are forgetting one thing is legal defense is expensive, and he's going to be facing a first-degree murder trial, which is going to start, and I believe they said June of next year, because there's just a lot of crap that goes into a first-degree murder trial. I mean, Brian Kohberger, from the time of his arrest, had to almost wait 2 years, and his plea deal, which I'll talk about in a second, basically came down at the 11th hour. And so with the money, there's not like they basically just said, hey, this is just going to his defense, and then they moved, they bought security with it, they did all this. So to that, I will say they're not really misusing the money, because they stated from the beginning, like, hey, this is money that's going to have to go towards our, I think the relocation came afterwards, because I don't know who, but someone leaked their address. Basically, hey, we have to relocate because now people know where we live, and we're worried that people are going to or already have come by to harass us. We're going to have to get security. We're going to have to just basic family support. In the description of that Give Send Go account, it listed all of that stuff. So it's not like they just said, hey, money's just going to get used for X, and they're using it for all sorts of fancy useless crap that isn't going towards his defense or anything to support Karmelo and his family that they may have lost since the indictment and his arrest came down. Now, what are my thoughts on this Karmelo Anthony thing? Have they changed? Have they not? Where am I right now? They haven't changed, because we also know that based on the security cam footage of the school that they didn't release, but they showed to like different news outlets, it basically goes more to support the Metcalf side of the story. Basically, like, hey, this was a regular day. These were just kids sitting under the tent. Then Carmelo came over as the aggressor, and then all hell broke loose, essentially. There's nothing from that anyone said that they saw within those security cam footage that goes to support this self-defense claim. He came over there with a knife that he has been suspended before for multiple times of carrying it on school grounds that he was not allowed to. He came over there with that knife, looking to start problems, and then he escalated it by stabbing someone and killing someone. Now, that's obviously messed up. It is entirely wrong, and most likely Carmelo Anthony will go to prison, if not for the rest of his life, for at least multiple decades. I don't think the kid's going to see the light of day again until he's an old man, if at all. Now, one other thing I want to mention, there are people on both sides of this story, on the Anthony side of it who are on his camp, and people on the Metcalf side of it who are supporters of them, who are trying to turn this into a race issue. This is not a racially motivated crime, in my opinion. There is absolutely no evidence that this is a racially motivated crime. Even if you want to go as far to say, hey, This was a bad kid. He had gotten suspended multiple times. He knew he wasn't supposed to carry that knife there. His family didn't care. Even if you want to say all of that, and even if all of that's true, that still doesn't make it a racial crime or a racially motivated crime, because there's absolutely no evidence that within the scope of this crime that Carmelo Anthony's actions happened because of the race of Austin Metcalf and his brothers. There is absolutely no evidence that I've seen that anyone is even suggesting that is connected to the case outside of the crazies on the internet that have any evidence at all that this is a racially motivated crime. So, and I'll be the first to admit if I'm wrong, if more evidence comes to light saying, hey, this was a racially motivated incident. But there is absolutely, in my opinion, absolutely no evidence to support the claim that this is a racially motivated crime. It just doesn't exist unless I missed it. So moving on to the Brian Kohberger case. Now, the first thing about the Brian Kohberger case, who, if you don't know, just pled guilty on basically the eve of a death penalty trial to a quadruple murder in Idaho. The first thing that struck me about this case was really just the lack of mainstream media coverage. Because my brain goes, it's a quadruple murder case. Of course, the mainstream media is going to talk about it. Of course, you have the usual suspects that talk about all different types of true crime cases. But the only true crime case that the mainstream media seem to have been even halfway interested in talking about is the Diddy case. Now, I get it. He's a celebrity and all that. So I get why you're fascinated with that case. But this is a quadruple murder case. And the fact that none of those outlets talked about this case with the vigor that they talked about the Diddy case still blows my mind. I get that it happens, but it just blows my mind. Now, he is going to be getting 4 life sentences plus 10 years. He is never going to get out of prison. And it's very obvious that Brian Kohberger pled guilty to avoid the death penalty because Idaho, where this crime took place, is a death penalty state, and their death penalties that they have in the state is they shoot you. That's their method of execution. So he was obviously scared shitless to get shot, which I get it. You don't want to get shot. It doesn't sound like a good time. But as far as, like I've said, as far as execution methods go, in my opinion, that has to be one of the least, if not the least painful method of execution that I could think of. But I can understand when you're faced down the pipe with death by firing squad, that can be intimidating. Now, another thing that people are upset on, that this really came very last minute. Now, this plea deal did not come from the prosecution. They did not approach Kohberger with this plea deal because they didn't actually want to pursue the death penalty. This plea deal came from the defense, and at the last minute, they went, all right, we're going to take this. He's pleading guilty to all charges. He is getting 4 life without sentences plus 10 years for the robbery. He is never getting out of prison. Now, certain family members of the victims I have accepted this, and I realize this ensures that he's never getting out of prison. He's never going to be able to harm anybody else. But other family members are going, hey, we wanted the death penalty. We chose to live in a state, and I'm not quoting, this is paraphrasing. We chose to live in a state that had the death penalty, and they took that off the table. They're accusing the prosecution of not including them, of really not wanting to seek the death penalty because they're bringing up like the prosecutor's 30-plus year record of really not liking the death penalty, of basically using it as like a pawn to get plea deals and stuff like that. But so the family members of the victims really seem to be split 50-50 on whether or not they like it. Some of them like it, some of them don't. Now, as I've stated beforehand, I am very pro death penalty, and I am of the statement of if Brian Kohberger does not deserve to die for a quadruple murder that he has confessed to, then who does? I get life without parole. That is a good thing. He is never going to get out of prison. He is never going to be able to harm any more innocent people. But he still gets to live his life. He gets to interact with the world. He gets commissary. Yeah, he's not going to be in a great place. He's still going to be in prison, but he's not going to be on death row. And I think he should have been executed. So I agree with the family members stating, hey, Brian Kohberger doesn't deserve to die, then who does? Now, the other thing that people are upset about is this plea deal did not include Brian Kohberger having to confess his motive, like why he broke into the house that night to do what he did. Which, even if it did, most likely he was going to be lying through his teeth. That we were going to have to say, hey, is he lying? Is he telling the truth? That was also a judgment the courts were going to have to make as well if they included that. But they didn't include it. They probably figured it was just a waste of time. And they also didn't need his motive to be able to convict him. Now, in my opinion, I don't have all the details. And in my opinion, his motive is incredibly obvious. In my opinion, his motive is sexual, because when he breaks into the house on the second floor, then instead of going through the second floor or going down to the basement floor to start from the ground up and attack the entire house, he breaks in onto the second floor. Then he immediately goes up the stairs into the bedroom where two of the girls are in and attacks them. Now, obviously, he couldn't have known that both of those two were going to be in the same bedroom, even though he was obviously stalking the house. So in my opinion, this is incredibly obvious that it's a sexual motive, but it just got way out of control here. He just wanted to kill that one. He just wanted to kill, I believe it was Maddie or Madison, on whose bedroom they were in, on the top of the stairs, because the other bedroom was across the way and they just happened to be in the same bedroom. Now, that's just my opinion on that motive. I could be wrong, but the fact that he broke into the house, went up the stairs, and attacked that bedroom, to me shows that that was the woman, that was the one he was interested in. And at first, those two just happened to be in the same bedroom. And then as he was trying to escape, he encountered the other two who had just gotten their DoorDash order. Now, that's all I got for this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. If you want to see me dive further into the Brian Kohberger plea deal, I'll keep you with updates with the Karmelo Anthony trial as stuff gets closer. Let me know in the comments below what other topics you want to see me cover. And until next time, guys, like this video, comment, share it, all that good stuff. And until next time, guys, have fun and stay safe.